The warning lights flashed across every council monitoring station in the Outer Rim territories. Something massive had just entered the disputed zone between the Vrelny Empire and the free trade routes. The signals were strange, not matching any known ship classification in the galactic database. Ambassador Zixthar sat in his command chair, his four eyes studying the readouts with growing concern. He was a senior member of the Vrelny Diplomatic Corps, a species that had maintained peace in this sector for over 3,000 years. His scales, a deep purple that indicated his age and wisdom, reflected the soft blue light of the bridge displays. "What are we looking at?" he asked his tactical officer. The young Vrelny officer, barely 2 centuries old, manipulated the holographic display with his clawed fingers. "Sir, the energy signature is enormous. Whatever it is, it's bigger than anything we've encountered before. The computer is having trouble calculating its actual size." Zixthar leaned forward. "Show me visual." The main screen flickered, and then they saw it. Even the ambassador, who had seen the great constructor ships of the builders and the moon-sized vessels of the ancient travelers, felt his breath catch in his throat. It was a ship, but calling it merely a ship seemed inadequate. It hung in space like a small moon, its hull stretching for kilometers in every direction. The vessel was angular, built with sharp lines and practical design rather than the flowing curves most advanced species preferred. It was clearly made for function, not beauty. "By the first stars," whispered the tactical officer. "The readings say it's over 8 kilometers long." Zixthar's mind raced. No species in the known galaxy built ships that large anymore. The ancient wars had taught everyone that such massive vessels were impractical, too expensive, too slow, and too easy to target. Modern warfare relied on smaller, faster ships working in coordinated fleets. "What civilization does it belong to?" he asked. The communications officer, a young female with bright green scales, looked up from her console. "Sir, we're receiving their identification beacon now. It's human." The bridge fell silent. Humans. The newest species to achieve faster-than-light travel. They had been discovered barely a century ago, a young race from a single planet they called Earth. The Council had made contact, shared basic technology, and expected them to follow the standard development path. It took most species 5,000 to 10,000 years to build a proper spacefaring civilization. "That's impossible," Zixthar said firmly. "The humans don't have the technology for something like this. Our last report showed they barely had a functioning fleet of exploration vessels." "The signal is confirmed, sir. They're calling it the UESC Indomitable, United Earth Space Command." Zixthar made his decision quickly. "Open a channel to all ships in our diplomatic fleet. We're going to make contact. Weapons remain cold, but shields at maximum. If this is some kind of trick, I want us ready." His fleet of 12 ships moved toward the massive human vessel. As they drew closer, the true scale of the carrier became even more apparent. It wasn't just large, it was covered in what looked like launch bays, hangar doors, and weapon emplacements. Zixthar counted at least 40 separate landing areas, each one large enough to accommodate ships the size of his own flagship. "Sir, they're hailing us," the communications officer reported. "Put them through." The screen changed to show the interior of what appeared to be a command bridge. The human commander stood at the center, a female with the dark skin and short hair that seemed common among their species. She wore a military uniform, dark blue with silver insignia. Her eyes were remarkably calm for someone commanding such an unprecedented vessel. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UESC Indomitable," she said. Her voice was steady, professional. "We received your approach vector, Ambassador Zixthar. We mean no hostile intent. We're simply passing through this region on our way to the outer colonies." Zixthar stood, making sure his full height was visible on the transmission. It was a diplomatic gesture, showing respect by presenting himself fully. "Captain Chen, I am Ambassador Zixthar of the Vrelny Empire. Your vessel has entered a disputed zone. More importantly, your vessel is unexpected. The Council was not informed that humanity had developed such technology." A slight smile crossed the human captain's face. "With respect, Ambassador, We weren't aware we needed to inform the Council of our ship construction. Earth is a sovereign world, not a council protectorate. The words were polite, but there was steel underneath them. Zixthar recognized the tone. He had heard it before from species that refused to be intimidated, even when they should be. "May I ask how you constructed such a vessel?" Zixthar asked carefully. "The engineering required would be beyond most civilizations' capabilities." "We built it the way humans build everything, Ambassador. We identified what we needed, designed it, and made it happen. It took 15 years and the combined resources of our entire planet, but we completed it 6 months ago." 15 years. Zixthar felt a chill run through his scales. The Vrelni had spent centuries building vessels a fraction of this size. How had the humans compressed such development into less than 2 decades? "Captain Chen, I must insist on a formal inspection. The Council has protocols for any vessel of this size entering known space. For the safety of all species." "Ambassador?" Chen interrupted, and Zixthar noticed her voice had become harder. "The Indomitable carries over 50,000 human personnel. It is by Earth law sovereign territory. However, in the interest of good relations, I will allow a small inspection team aboard. No more than 20 individuals, and they must leave their weapons on their own ships." Zixthar considered this. It was a compromise, but one that clearly established human authority over their own vessel. "Agreed. We will assemble a team immediately." As the transmission ended, the tactical officer leaned closer to Zixthar. "Sir, our deep scans are picking up something disturbing. The carrier isn't just a ship. It has full manufacturing facilities inside. They can build their own fighters, their own weapons, even their own smaller ships. It's completely self-sufficient." "And their weapon systems?" Zixthar asked quietly. "Extensive. More than extensive. The point defense grid alone has more firepower than our entire fleet, and they have launch capability for what appears to be thousands of small craft. Sir, if they wanted to, they could probably take on a council battle group and have a fair chance of winning." Zixthar looked at the massive carrier on the screen. It hung there in space, silent and waiting. The humans had been in space for only a century, and they had built this. What would they build in 1,000 years? In 10,000? "Prepare the inspection team," he said finally, "and send a priority message to the Council. Tell them we have a situation that requires immediate attention. The humans have just changed everything." As his crew rushed to follow orders, Zixthar couldn't shake a feeling of dread. The galaxy had rules, traditions developed over millions of years. Every species learned to follow them eventually. But as he stared at the Indomitable, he wondered if humanity would be the exception. They had come to the stars not as explorers or traders, but as conquerors who didn't even realize that's what they were. The real question wasn't whether the humans had built this impossible ship. The real question was, what else were they capable of? Dr. Kelmath floated through the docking tube, his tentacles gripping the handrails with nervous energy. He was the Council's foremost expert on ship engineering, a Qualini who had studied vessel construction for over 400 years. Behind him followed 19 other scientists and engineers from various Council species, all selected for their expertise. Nothing in his centuries of experience had prepared him for what waited ahead. The airlock opened and they entered the human carrier. The first thing that struck Kelmath was the gravity. It was heavy, much heavier than standard galactic ships maintained. His species preferred low-gravity environments, and this felt oppressive. He noticed the other team members struggling too, except for the 2 Vrelni guards who had insisted on coming along despite the weapons restriction. A human waited for them in the reception bay. He was tall, wearing the same dark blue uniform as the captain, with insignia that marked him as some kind of engineering officer. His face was friendly, but Kelmath had learned that humans often smiled when they were actually tense. "Welcome aboard the Indomitable," the human said. His voice was surprisingly deep. "I'm Commander James Torres, Chief Engineering Officer. Captain Chen asked me to give you the full tour. I understand you have questions about our ship's construction." "Questions would be an understatement," Dr. Kelmath replied, adjusting his translation device. "Your vessel defies every principle of modern ship design." "How is it even possible?" Commander Torres smiled wider. Why don't I show you? Follow me, please, and watch your step. Our gravity is set to Earth standard, 1G. That's heavier than most species prefer. They walked through corridors that seemed impossibly wide. Everything was built on a larger scale than necessary. Kelmath's analytical mind recognized this immediately as inefficient use of space, yet he sensed there was a purpose behind it. First question, Torres said as they walked. Why did we build it so big? The answer is simple. We needed to. Earth is far from the established trade routes. If we're going to explore deep space, we need to be self-sufficient for years at a time. They entered a massive chamber, and Kelmath stopped in shock. It was a factory, a complete manufacturing facility inside the ship. Humans in work suits operated machinery that shaped metal, assembled components, and tested systems. In one corner, he could see what looked like a partially constructed fighter craft. This is Factory Bay 3, Torres explained casually. We have 8 of these throughout the ship. We can manufacture everything from replacement parts to entirely new small craft. Takes about 4 days to build a fighter from raw materials. A Quilani engineer in the group spoke up, her voice trembling. This is insane. The power requirements alone would drain a standard fusion reactor in hours. How are you powering this? Torres led them to an observation window. Through the reinforced glass, they could see a massive chamber filled with swirling energy. The light was bright, almost blinding. Contained fusion reactors, Torres said. 12 of them throughout the ship. Each one generates enough power to run a small city on Earth. Dr. Kelmath pressed his tentacles against the glass. But contained fusion is dangerous. The risk of cascade failure. The potential for catastrophic explosion. The Council banned this technology 3,000 years ago after the Kelmer disaster. We know the risks, Torres replied, and his voice was no longer casual. We also know the rewards. Yes, if something goes wrong, the reactor could explode. That's why we have triple redundancy systems, automated shutdown protocols, and specially trained crews. We accept the danger because the alternative is being helpless in deep space. They moved on, and Torres showed them more impossible things. The hydroponics bays that could feed the entire crew indefinitely. The medical facilities that rivaled planetary hospitals. The residential sections where families lived, including children. The ship wasn't just a military vessel. It was a floating city. But what disturbed Dr. Kelmath most were the weapons. Torres took them to an observation deck overlooking one of the main hangar bays. Rows upon rows of fighter craft sat ready for launch. Kelmath counted at least 200 in this bay alone, and Torres had mentioned there were multiple bays. Your point defense systems, a Vrelny military observer said. Our scans detected thousands of them. What could possibly require such excessive firepower? Torres turned to face them, and his expression was serious. Space is dangerous. We learned that the hard way during our early exploration. There are pirates, hostile species, and things we don't even understand yet. Every human aboard this ship is someone's son or daughter, someone's parent or sibling. We will not let them die because we were unprepared. But this level of armament suggests you expect war, the Vrelny pressed. The Council has maintained peace in known space, Torres interrupted. Earth wasn't part of that peace until recently. We've spent our entire history fighting for survival. First against our own planet, then against each other, and now we're out here in a galaxy we barely understand. Forgiveness might be divine, but we prefer to have good weapons just in case. Dr. Kelmath noticed something else troubling. Throughout the tour, they had passed human crew members of all ages. They saluted Torres and went about their duties with efficiency. But there was something in their eyes, a hardness that he had never seen in other species. Commander Torres, Kelmath said carefully, how many of your crew have military training? All of them, Torres replied simply. Even the civilians. Everyone aboard can fight if needed. It's part of basic training for deep space assignment. The inspection team exchanged worried glances. This wasn't exploration. This was colonization with military backup, wrapped in the language of peaceful expansion. They entered what Torres called the Strategic Planning Center. Holographic displays showed star maps, tactical scenarios, and what appeared to be battle simulations. A group of human officers were studying an engagement scenario, discussing strategy with the calm focus of people who expected to use these plans. You're preparing for war, Kelmath said. It wasn't a question. Torres met his gaze. We're preparing for anything. There's a difference. Look, I know this seems excessive to you. The Council species evolved in a relatively peaceful galaxy. You had time to develop slowly, to learn diplomacy before you needed weapons. Earth wasn't like that. He pulled up an image on the display. It showed Earth, a blue and green world that looked deceptively peaceful. Our planet tried to kill us for millions of years. Predators, diseases, natural disasters. We learned that the universe doesn't care about fairness. It doesn't matter if you're peaceful or have good intentions. What matters is whether you can survive. So you built this ship as a weapon, the Vrelny observer said accusingly. No, Torres replied firmly. We built this ship as a shield. There's a human saying, walk softly and carry a big stick. The Indomitable is our big stick. We hope we never need to use it for war, but if we do need it, we'll be ready. Dr. Kelmeth felt a deep unease settling over him. The humans weren't hostile, but they were something perhaps more concerning. They were competent, prepared, and absolutely unwilling to rely on anyone else for their safety. How many more of these carriers are you building? He asked quietly. Torres hesitated for just a moment. That's classified information, but I can tell you that Earth's shipyards are very busy right now. We have a lot of space to explore, and we won't do it in ships that can't protect themselves. As the tour concluded and the inspection team prepared to return to their own ships, Kelmeth pulled Torres aside. Commander, I need to know. Are humans planning to conquer the galaxy? Torres looked surprised, then laughed. But it wasn't a cruel laugh. It sounded almost sad. Dr. Kelmeth, humans don't want to conquer anyone. We just want to make sure nobody can conquer us. There's a difference. Is there? Kelmeth asked. Because from where I stand, a species that builds ships like this, that arms every citizen, that prepares for war while claiming peace, that species looks dangerous. Maybe we are dangerous, Torres admitted, but we're only dangerous to those who would hurt us or those we've sworn to protect. The galaxy is going to have to decide if they want us as friends or enemies. We're hoping for friends. As Dr. Kelmeth floated back through the docking tube to his own ship, he knew what his report would say. The humans had achieved in 1 century what should have taken 10,000 years. They had built something unprecedented, something that changed the balance of power in the galaxy. But more than that, they had revealed their nature. They were survivors shaped by a harsh world into beings who would never again be helpless. They had come to the stars not to conquer, but to ensure they could never be conquered. The question now was whether the Council would see that distinction, or whether they would see only the threat. The attack came without warning. Captain Sarah Chen was reviewing supply reports when the alarm screamed across the Indomitable's bridge. Red lights flashed and every screen switched to tactical displays. Her crew moved with practiced efficiency, each person taking their battle stations in seconds. Report, Chen ordered, her voice calm despite the chaos erupting around her. Lieutenant Morrison, her tactical officer, worked frantically at his console, multiple contacts emerging from hyperspace, reading as cavalry swarm vessels. Count as, oh God, it's a full battle fleet. At least 40 ships, including 3 dreadnoughts. Chen's blood went cold. The Calvari were one of the most aggressive species in known space. They were insectoid warriors who believed strength was the only law that mattered. They had been watching the Council's weakness for years, waiting for an opportunity. Distance? She asked. 2 million kilometers and closing fast. They're burning hard toward us. Chen activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. We are under attack by Calvari forces. This is not a drill. Battle stations. Pilots to your fighters. Marines, prepare for possible boarding actions. We are going to show these bugs what humans are made of. She switched to the diplomatic channel, knowing Ambassador Zixthar's fleet was still nearby. Ambassador, the Calvari are attacking. I suggest your ships withdraw to a safe distance. This is going to get ugly. The Vrelny ambassador's face appeared on screen. His scales had turned pale with fear. Captain Chen, you must retreat. The cavalry swarm is too powerful. Even Council battle fleets avoid direct confrontation with them. You cannot win this fight. Watch us, Chen replied, cutting the transmission. The first Calvari missiles reached them moments later. The Indomitable's point defense system came alive. Thousands of automated cannons tracked and fired in perfect synchronization. The space around the carrier lit up like a fireworks display as missiles exploded before reaching their target. Shields holding at 98%, Morrison reported. Their missiles can't get through our defensive grid. Launch fighters, Chen ordered. All squadrons, Show them what Earth's finest can do. The hangar bays opened like the mouths of great beasts. Fighters poured out in organized waves, hundreds of small craft forming up into attack formations. Each fighter was piloted by a human who had trained their entire adult life for this moment. Squadron leader Maria Rodriguez led the first wave. She had grown up in the slums of New Mexico, joined the Space Command to escape poverty, and discovered she was born to fly. Now she was diving toward an enemy fleet that outnumbered her forces 10-1, and she was grinning. "All right, demons," she called to her squadron. "Remember your training. These bugs are fast, but we're faster. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and don't give them time to think. For Earth! For Earth!" Her squadron echoed. The human fighters crashed into the Calvari formation like a tidal wave. The aliens had expected the typical Council response: careful, calculated engagement with minimal casualties. Instead, they faced pilots who flew with reckless courage, pressing attacks that seemed suicidal. Rodriguez lined up on a Calvari destroyer, ignoring the defensive fire that peppered her shields. She fired her main cannon, the kinetic rounds punching through the alien ship's armor. The destroyer's engine section exploded, sending the vessel spinning out of control. "Splash one," she reported, already turning toward her next target. But the cavalry were warriors too. They adapted quickly, and soon human fighters started taking casualties. Rodriguez watched as Lieutenant Chen's fighter took a direct hit and vaporized. The pilot had been 23 years old, fresh from the academy. "Stay focused," Rodriguez barked to her squadron. "Mourn later. Fight now." On the Indomitable's bridge, Captain Chen watched the tactical display with fierce concentration. The fighters were buying them time, but she knew it wouldn't be enough. The Calvari dreadnoughts were pushing through, and they had weapons powerful enough to threaten even her massive carrier. "Bring us about," she ordered. "Full power to forward shields. All main batteries target the lead dreadnought. Fire when ready." The Indomitable turned with surprising grace for its size. Its main weapons, massive railguns that fired projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed, locked onto the Calvari flagship. When they fired, the entire ship shuddered from the recoil. The rounds crossed the distance in seconds. The Calvari dreadnought's shields flared and failed. The kinetic projectiles tore through its armor like paper, ripping the massive ship apart from bow to stern. The dreadnought broke in half, both pieces tumbling away into space. Ambassador Zixthar watched from his ship, his four eyes wide with disbelief. The humans had just destroyed a vessel that would have required an entire council fleet to defeat, and they had done it with a single volley. "Impossible," he whispered. "Kinetic weapons haven't been used in warfare for 5,000 years. They're too slow, too easy to dodge." His tactical officer shook his head, studying the data. "Not at those velocities, sir. The humans are firing their projectiles at speeds we thought impossible. There's no time to dodge." The battle raged on. The Calvari, realizing they were facing an unexpected threat, changed tactics. One of their dreadnoughts broke formation and rammed toward the Indomitable at full speed, clearly intending to crash into the carrier's hull. "Boarding action incoming," Morrison announced. "They're going to try to take us from the inside," Chen smiled grimly. "Let them come. Marines, prepare to receive guests. Show them what happens when you bring a knife to a human fight." The Calvari dreadnought crashed into the Indomitable's lower hull. The impact shook the entire carrier, but the heavy armor held. Immediately, cutting torches began burning through the hull as cavalry warriors prepared to board. Sergeant John Murphy stood with his Marine platoon in the corridor where the breach was occurring. He was a veteran of the Mars Rebellion, a man who had seen combat in the tunnels of Olympus Mons. He hefted his rifle and checked his ammunition for the third time. "Listen up," he told his Marines. "These bugs are mean, they're fast, and they think they're the toughest things in the galaxy. Our job is to educate them. Remember your training. Aim for the joints in their armor. Watch your corners. And for God's sake, don't let them get to the reactor levels." The hull exploded inward. Cavalry warriors poured through, each one standing over 2 meters tall, their chitinous armor gleaming under the emergency lights. They carried plasma weapons and had claws that could tear through steel. They ran straight into a wall of human gunfire. Murphy's Marines opened up with everything they had: rifles, grenades, even close combat weapons for when the enemy got too near. The corridor became a killing ground. The Calvari were strong and fierce, but humans had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing each other. They knew every dirty trick, every brutal tactic. A cavalry warrior charged at Murphy, its mandibles clicking in what might have been a war cry. Murphy shot it 3 times in the thorax, then smashed his rifle butt into its head when it kept coming. The alien went down and Murphy was already turning to the next threat. "They keep coming," one of his Marines shouted. "Then we keep shooting." Murphy roared back. The close-quarters battle was vicious. Humans and cavalry died in the narrow corridors, neither side giving ground, but slowly, inevitably, the Marines pushed the aliens back. They fought with a determination that came from protecting their home, their ship, their family. On the bridge, Chen received reports from all sectors. The fighters had crippled or destroyed most of the cavalry fleet. The Marines were holding every boarding point, and the Indomitable's main guns had just taken out the second dreadnought. "Captain," Morrison said, his voice filled with awe, "they're retreating. The cavalry are withdrawing." Chen watched the surviving enemy ships turn and flee into hyperspace. The battle had lasted less than an hour, but the space around the Indomitable was filled with debris and the bodies of the fallen. "All ships, ceasefire," she ordered. "Damage report." The reports came in. They had lost 48 fighters and their pilots. 32 Marines had died defending the breaches. The Indomitable itself had taken damage, but nothing critical. In exchange, they had destroyed or disabled over 30 cavalry vessels, including 2 dreadnoughts. Chen opened a channel to the entire ship. Her crew needed to hear from her, needed to know this victory came at a price. "This is the captain. The enemy has been defeated and driven off. You fought bravely and you fought well, but we paid for this victory with blood. 48 pilots and 32 Marines gave their lives today defending this ship and everyone aboard it. We will honor them. We will remember them. And we will make sure the galaxy knows what it cost to attack humanity." She switched to the diplomatic channel, where Ambassador Zixthar was still watching. The alien's expression was one of pure shock. "Ambassador," Chen said quietly, "please send a message to the Council. Tell them humanity did not come to the stars to bow. We came to stand. And we will stand against anyone who threatens us or our allies." Zixthar could only nod, unable to speak. He had just witnessed something unprecedented. A single human vessel had defeated a Calvari battle fleet, something the entire Council had believed impossible. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. The Council chamber on the homeworld of the Vrelny was in chaos. Representatives from 43 different species shouted at each other, their translation devices creating a cacophony of angry voices in 100 different languages. Holographic displays showed footage of the battle between the Indomitable and the cavalry fleet, playing on repeat. High Chancellor Vorn stood at the center podium, his scales flashing red with frustration as he tried to restore order. He was one of the oldest beings in the chamber, having served on the Council for over 6 centuries. He had seen wars, plagues, and the rise and fall of civilizations, but he had never seen anything like the humans. "Order!" he shouted, his voice amplified throughout the massive chamber. "We must have order!" Slowly, the representatives returned to their seats. The silence that followed was heavy with tension. Ambassador Zixthar stood to speak. He had been summoned directly from the frontier, still wearing his travel robes. His scales were dulled from exhaustion, but his voice was strong. "Honored Council members," he began, "I have witnessed something that changes everything we thought we knew about warfare and power in this galaxy. A single human vessel defeated a full cavalry battle fleet, not through superior numbers or advanced technology, but through sheer determination and a willingness to fight that I have never encountered before." A Quilani representative raised a tentacle. "Surely you exaggerate, Ambassador. The Calvari swarm has terrorized the frontier for generations. No single ship could—" "I have the battle records," Zixthar interrupted, gesturing to the holographic display. "Watch for yourselves." The footage played. Council members watched in horror as human fighters threw themselves at enemy vessels with reckless abandon. They saw the Indomitable's massive guns tear apart ships that would normally require entire fleets to defeat. They watched humans fight off boarding parties in brutal close-quarters combat, giving no quarter and asking for none. When the footage ended, the chamber was silent. Finally, Representative Kessa of the Helion Consortium spoke. Her species were master traders, always calculating profit and loss. "We must destroy them before they become too powerful. If we act now, while they only have one carrier, we can eliminate the threat." A roar of agreement rose from several representatives, but others shouted them down just as quickly. "You would start a war with a species we barely understand?" challenged Representative Tom of the Peaceful Worlds Alliance. "Have you learned nothing from what we just witnessed? They destroyed a Calvari fleet. What do you think they would do to us? They are dangerous, Kessa insisted. They have no respect for the traditional rules of warfare. They use kinetic weapons, forbidden technology, and train their entire population for combat. They are a threat to galactic peace. High Chancellor Vorn raised his hands for silence. We will not make hasty decisions. Ambassador Zixthar, you have spent time with these humans. What is your assessment? Are they conquerors? Do they seek to dominate the galaxy? Zixthar was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. No, Chancellor. I do not believe they seek conquest. But I also do not believe they will accept any limits on their sovereignty. The humans come from a world that tried to kill them for millions of years. They evolved in an environment of constant threat. Their entire psychology is shaped by this. So they are paranoid, another representative said. They are cautious, Zixthar corrected. There is a difference. During my time aboard the Indomitable, I spoke with many humans. They do not want war. They want safety, but they will never again place their survival in someone else's hands. They have decided that the only way to be truly safe is to be so strong that no one dares attack them. Representative Doral of the military coalition stood. His species, the Kryn, were warriors by tradition. Then we must show them that strength invites challenge. If they continue building these carriers, others will see it as a threat and attack. They will start an arms race that will destabilize the entire galaxy. Or, came a new voice, we could offer them alliance. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. It was Representative Mira of the Terran Observation Committee, one of the few council members who had actually visited Earth before humans achieved faster-than-light travel. Explain, Chancellor Vorn said. Mira stepped forward, her crystalline body reflecting the light in the chamber. I have studied humans for decades. I was on Earth when they first split the atom. I watched them nearly destroy themselves with nuclear weapons, then step back from the brink. I saw them cure diseases, explore their own world, and finally reach for the stars. They are capable of terrible violence, yes, but they are also capable of incredible compassion. Your point? Kessa demanded. My point is that humans respond to how they are treated. If we treat them as enemies, they will become enemies. But if we treat them as allies, if we show them they do not need to be afraid, they might become our greatest asset. Asset? Several representatives scoffed. Yes, asset, Mira said firmly. Think about it. The humans have shown they can fight when necessary. They have weapons and tactics we have forgotten or abandoned. They are aggressive when threatened, yes. But look at their history. They also form powerful bonds of loyalty. They protect those they consider friends with the same ferocity they show their enemies. Chancellor Vorn leaned forward, interested despite himself. You are suggesting we recruit them as protectors? Why not? The Council has spent millennia building a civilization based on trade, diplomacy, and mutual benefit. But we are vulnerable. The Calvari attack proved that. Pirates raid our frontier worlds. Aggressive species test our borders. We maintain peace not through strength, but through the threat of collective action. But that threat only works if everyone believes it. And you think the humans would defend Council worlds? Doral asked skeptically. If we give them reason to, Mira replied. Humans have a concept they call friends. It is more than just alliance. It is a bond of mutual obligation. If you are a human's friend, they will defend you as they would defend their own family. All we need to do is become their friends. Ambassador Zixthar spoke up again. She is right. Captain Chen said something to me after the battle. She said humans did not come to the stars to bow, but to stand. I believe if we can show them they can stand with us rather than against us, we might find willing allies. The debate continued for hours. Some representatives insisted humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable. Others argued that attempting to suppress humanity would only provoke the war they were trying to avoid. Still others suggested simply ignoring the humans and hoping they stayed in their own region of space. Finally, Chancellor Vorn called for a vote. We have three options before us. First, we can attempt to restrict human expansion through diplomatic pressure, and, if necessary, military action. Second, we can adopt a policy of non-interference and hope for the best. Third, we can extend an offer of full council membership and alliance to humanity. All in favor of the first option? Only 7 hands, tentacles, and appendages rose. Second option? 12 representatives voted for non-interference. Third option? The remaining 24 representatives voted for alliance, though many looked uncertain. Chancellor Vorn nodded slowly. Then it is decided. We will extend an offer of full council membership to humanity. Ambassador Zixthar, you will lead the delegation. You have more experience with these beings than anyone else, Zixthar bowed. I am honored, Chancellor. But I must warn you all, the humans will not accept membership if they believe it limits their sovereignty. Any offer we make must respect their independence. Then we will make it clear, Vorn said. We offer partnership, not control, alliance, not subjugation, and perhaps, if we are wise, we will gain the protection we need without the war we fear. As the council session ended and representatives filed out, Mira approached Zixthar. Do you really think this will work? She asked quietly. The ambassador looked at the holographic display, still showing the image of the Indomitable hanging in space like a silent guardian. I think humans are like their ship. Powerful, dangerous, but built for a purpose. They want to protect what is theirs. If we can convince them that we are part of what is theirs, then yes, it might work. And if we cannot convince them, Zixthar's scales darkened. Then we will face a species that builds weapons like the Indomitable and sees us as potential threats. And I do not believe the Council could survive that. 3 days later, Ambassador Zixthar stood in the docking bay of the Indomitable once more. Captain Chen greeted him with the same professional courtesy as before, but there was a new respect in her eyes. The battle had changed things between them. Ambassador, she said, welcome back. I assume the Council has made a decision about humanity? They have, Zixthar replied, and I believe you will find it interesting. The Council wishes to extend an offer of full membership to humanity, complete access to our trade networks, our knowledge databases, and our diplomatic protections. Chen raised an eyebrow. In exchange for what? In exchange for alliance. True alliance. If any council member is attacked, all members respond, including humanity. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. You want us to be your guard dogs. We want you to be our partners, Zixthar corrected. There is a difference. The council offers friendship if humanity is willing to accept it. I'll need to take this to Earth Command, Chen said. But Ambassador, I think you might have just prevented a war. Let us hope so, Zixthar replied. Because I have seen what humans can do when they fight. I would much rather see what they can do when they protect. Captain Sarah Chen stood before the council assembly, the first human to ever address the gathered representatives of 43 alien species. The chamber was enormous, built to accommodate beings of vastly different sizes and atmospheres. Some representatives sat in tanks of liquid, others floated in zero-gravity fields, and still others stood on platforms adjusted to their native gravity. Chen wore her dress uniform, dark blue with silver trim and the insignia of United Earth Space Command. She had been chosen to speak because she commanded the Indomitable, the ship that had changed everything. Behind her, projected on massive screens, Earth Command had sent their response to the Council's offer. Chancellor Vorn gestured for silence. Captain Chen, you have considered our offer of Council membership. What is humanity's response? Chen took a breath. She had practiced this speech 100 times during the 3-week journey to the Council homeworld. But standing here, looking at the alien faces watching her with fear, hope, and suspicion, the practiced words seemed inadequate. Honored Council members, she began, her voice steady. Earth Command has reviewed your generous offer. Full Council membership, access to your trade routes and knowledge and protection under Council law. These are valuable things and we are grateful. She paused and a murmur ran through the chamber. The representatives could sense a but coming. However, Chen continued, we cannot accept these terms as they stand. Humanity has one condition that must be met before we can join the Council. Chancellor Vorn's scales rippled with surprise. You wish to negotiate? Captain, you must understand that Council membership is not something we offer lightly. The terms are standard for all species. I understand, Chen replied. But humanity is not a standard species. We did not develop slowly under the protection of galactic civilization. We clawed our way up from a world that tried to kill us every day. We earned our place in the stars through blood, sweat, and determination. We will not surrender what makes us human just to join your club. Representative Kessa stood abruptly. This is outrageous. You dare to dictate terms to the Council? Not dictate, Chen said calmly. Negotiate. That is what allies do, is it not? They talk, they compromise, they find solutions that work for everyone. Then state your condition, Chancellor Vorn said. Chen activated her data pad, and the screens behind her changed. They showed a document, translated into 43 different languages. Humanity will accept Council membership on one condition. We propose a mutual defense pact, not just that members can request aid, but that they must provide it. If any member species is attacked, all members respond with military force. No exceptions. No debates. No delays. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted in their native languages, the translation devices struggling to keep up. Some were outraged at the audacity. Others were confused. A few looked thoughtful. "This is madness," Representative Dorrell shouted. "You would drag the entire council into every border dispute, every pirate raid, every minor conflict?" "No," Chen replied firmly. "I would make sure that there are no more conflicts. Think about it. Right now, the council maintains peace through the threat of collective action. But everyone knows that threat is hollow. When the Calvari attacked the Indomitable, where was the council fleet? You watched from a distance, hoping we would solve your problem for you." Ambassador Zixthar stood. "Captain Chen, what you propose is unprecedented. The council has existed for over 1,000,000 years without such a pact. Why do we need it now?" Chen turned to face him directly. "Because the galaxy is changing, Ambassador. You said it yourself. The council has maintained peace in known space, but unknown space keeps getting smaller. Eventually you will meet species like humanity or worse. Species that do not care about your traditions or your diplomacy. When that happens, you will need to be able to fight as one, immediately and without hesitation." Representative Mira, the crystalline being who had studied humans, spoke up. "But such a pact would require enormous trust. We would be obligating ourselves to defend worlds we barely know, against threats we might not understand." "Yes," Chen agreed. "That is exactly what we are asking. And in return, humanity pledges the same. If your worlds are threatened, Earth's fleets will come. Not because we have to, but because you are our allies. Because when humans call someone a friend, we mean it." Chancellor Vorn looked troubled. "Captain, you must understand. The Council has always valued autonomy. Each species maintains its own military, makes its own decisions. What you propose would bind us together in ways that could limit our freedom." Chen smiled slightly. "With respect, Chancellor, that is the point. Real alliance requires sacrifice. It requires trusting that your friends will be there when you need them. Humanity learned this lesson the hard way in our own history. We fought 2 world wars before we understood that real peace requires real commitment." She gestured to the screens again, and new images appeared. The Indomitable, yes, but also construction yards around Earth where 3 more carriers were being built. Shipyards on Mars, manufacturing facilities on Europa, mining operations in the asteroid belt. "Humanity is building more ships," Chen said. "Whether you accept our offer or not, we will continue to expand. We will continue to grow stronger. You can see that as a threat and perhaps try to stop us, or you can see it as an opportunity. Partner with us. Let Earth's fleets protect Council space. Let our industry supplement your economies. Let our fighters stand beside yours when danger comes. And if we refuse?" Kessa asked coldly. Chen met her gaze without flinching. "Then humanity will continue on its own path. We will expand into unclaimed space. We will establish our own colonies, our own trade routes, our own alliances. We will not threaten the Council, but we will not rely on it either. And when the next Calvari fleet attacks a Council world, you will face them alone." The silence that followed was deafening. Every representative understood what Chen was really saying. Humanity was offering a choice: accept them as full partners with real obligations, or face the future with humanity as a neutral power that might not help when needed. Chancellor Vorn consulted with his advisors in hushed tones. Finally, he turned back to Chen. "You ask much, Captain. Too much, some would say. We need time to consider." "Of course," Chen replied. "Take all the time you need. But while you deliberate, remember this. Somewhere out there, another threat is growing. Another Calvari, another hostile species, another danger you have not yet imagined. When that threat arrives, you will want allies who respond immediately, who fight without hesitation, who stand beside you no matter the cost." She pulled out a small data chip and placed it on the podium. "This contains the full treaty proposal. It includes provisions for shared military command during crises, technology exchange programs, and mutual economic support. It also includes strict limitations on when the pact can be invoked to address concerns about minor conflicts. We have tried to be fair." "Fair?" Representative Kessa scoffed. "You hold all the leverage. We saw what your single ship did to a Calvari fleet. How is this fair?" Chen turned to face her directly. It is fair because humanity gains as much as the Council does. Yes, we have military strength, but we lack the knowledge, the experience, the networks that you have built over 1,000,000 years. We need you as much as you need us. That is what makes this a real partnership. The vote was called 3 days later. Chen waited aboard the Indomitable, which hung in orbit above the Council homeworld. Her crew was nervous, wondering if they would be returning to Earth as allies or as a species that would have to make its own way in a hostile galaxy. Ambassador Zixthar delivered the news in person. He materialized in the Indomitable's conference room via hologram. His scales bright with what Chen had learned was cautious optimism. "Captain Chen," he said formally, "the Council has voted. By a margin of 32 to 11, they have accepted humanity's proposal. We will establish a mutual defense pact. Earth will become a full Council member, with all rights and responsibilities that entails." Chen felt relief wash over her, though she kept her expression professional. "Thank you, Ambassador. Earth Command will be pleased." "There is more," Zixthar continued. "The Council has also voted to establish a new position, Protector of Council Space. It is a military command that will coordinate defense across all member worlds. The Council has asked that humanity provide the first protector." Chen raised her eyebrows. "They want a human in charge of Council defense? They want someone who understands warfare, who will not hesitate when action is needed. They want someone from a species that knows how to fight. The position is yours, Captain, if you want it." Chen was quiet for a moment, thinking about what this meant. Humanity had come to the stars less than 2 centuries ago. Now they were being asked to defend a civilization that spanned thousands of worlds. "I accept," she said finally. "On behalf of humanity and Earth Command, we will be the shield that protects the Council. We will stand guard while others build and create and prosper, and we will show the galaxy what it means to have humans as friends." Zixthar's scales brightened fully. "Then welcome, Captain Chen, welcome to the Council. May our alliance bring peace to the stars." As the hologram faded, Chen looked out the window at the alien world below. Somewhere down there, representatives from 43 species were adjusting to the idea of humanity as their protectors. Some were probably still afraid. Others were skeptical, but they had made their choice. She activated the ship-wide communication. "Attention all crew. We have been accepted into the Galactic Council. But more than that, we have been trusted with the protection of thousands of worlds. This is an honor but also a responsibility. We will train harder, fight smarter, and stand ready to defend not just Earth, but all Council space." She paused, thinking about the pilots who had died fighting the Calvari, the Marines who had given their lives in the corridors. Our fallen shipmates died protecting this vessel and everyone aboard. Now their sacrifice has meaning beyond our own survival. They died protecting the principle that humanity stands with its allies, that we fight for those who cannot fight for themselves, that we are the shield, not the sword. In the months that followed, more human carriers arrived. The Indomitable was joined by the Defiant, the Resolute, and the Valiant. Human fleets began patrolling Council space, their presence a deterrent to pirates and hostile species. Earth's factories produced weapons and ships that were distributed to Council members. Human Marines trained alien soldiers in close combat techniques. But more importantly, something unexpected happened. The other Council species began to change. Inspired by human determination, they started investing more in their own defense. They trained their people, improved their ships, and prepared for threats they had long ignored. The humans had not made them weak. They had made them stronger. And when the Kryn invasion came 5 years later, when a hostile empire from beyond known space attacked with a fleet 10 times larger than the Calvari, they found not a divided council of peaceful species, but a unified force that fought together. Human carriers stood beside Vrelny cruisers, Quilani science vessels provided tactical support, and Helian fighters flew in formation with Earth's squadrons. The invasion was defeated, and the galaxy learned a new truth. Humanity had not come to conquer or to dominate. They had come to stand beside those who would stand with them. They had come to protect a civilization that valued peace, because they understood better than anyone what it took to maintain it. The Indomitable hung in space above the Council homeworld, its massive form a reminder of humanity's promise. They were the shield, they were the protectors, and they would never let their friends face the darkness alone.